Welcome back. I'm CJ Webster, founder of C Webster Consulting, where we empower legal tech companies to win more clients, grow customer base, and attract investors. In part two of our conversation with John Horn, we talk about strategies and how you can help sales professionals within your organization win more head to head battles when competing against their rivals. We also talk about executive profiling, what executive profiling is, why you should care, and how you will use executive profiling as you develop your strategy to dominate the market. And lastly, we take a current event looking at four different companies and we talk about the competitive insights and the decisions that they made, applying everything that we talked about in part one and part two. Let's get into it. But how can sales leaders take on proactive roles, or who based on your experience, who should they be working with within their organization to make sure that that fresh data is available, so that at a certain point they spot those trends to say, hey, you know we are noticing that with our churn, that this competitor continues to come up, and it's not just the click in the CRM to say it was company XYZ, but understanding why is company XYZ.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm collecting at the beginning, just saying, okay, which competitor are you hearing about? And then I can go back and I start seeing that it's the same competitor over and over and over. Now, at least I know which sales agents to go back to and talk to, because the system's collected who mentioned that they talked about that competitor. Great. Now I can also subset and say, okay, well, which customers did we lose contracts with? And the sales agent reported that we talked about that competitor I'm worried about. Okay, now it's only like 3 or 4 people. And now I can set up to say, hey, can I have like a 5-10 minute call with you? Just want to know, you said you mentioned that this competitor was brought up and we lost that contract. What were they talking about in terms of the competitor? Oh, that they got this great new product and they were asking how we're better than them. Oh, okay, thanks. When you talk to the second person, what were they talking? Oh, that they got this great new product and we're not better than them. Oh, okay, thanks. And the third person, great new product. Oh, well, now I know what the thing is. Now I know how to think about the competitor. It's about their investment in new products. So we got to think about, how do we up our product? Or if it's about price. And eventually what happens is, as you start building in that sort of habit of the Salesforce of like, did you talk about a competitor who? Great. And they're like, yeah, click, done, 5 seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to add one more thing. Did you talk about competitor who? What did you talk about? Drop down, price, product, R&D, partnership. Like 4 things. It's like, okay, I added the competitor and now I did now it took 3 seconds or 5. It took 7 seconds instead of 5 seconds. And that's where you start to say, okay, well, I want more information. Okay, well, we're going to add 10 seconds of time to your after action report. Oh, okay. Well, that's going to give me more insight. Yeah. Okay. Because you've been giving me insight. Yeah. Okay. So it's about, it's no different than like an entrepreneur. When you talk about entrepreneurial, development, everyone's advice is build a minimum viable product and then keep iterating with your customers. In this case, your customers are the people who are using the competitive insight. So start small, start something which is focused, and then give them information. Say, okay, you want something better? Give me feedback. And I'm not going to like dump and say, okay, now instead of feedback, I want you to tell me every customer and what they did and what price was it and when in the conversation did it happen. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So keep like thinking about step by step, building up how you collect that data. Then that's going to give more information back. And then the sales agents come and say, hey, can we get even more? Say, yeah, but I'm going to have to ask you for more. Okay, fine. What do you want to know? We're going to add one more thing to the sales action report. Great. Okay. So it's sort of creating that self-reinforcing cycle where they want to give more information because they're getting more information back from you.
Absolutely. And they see the value that
Right.
it will help them, maybe not this deal, but maybe another deal.
Yeah.
That it will help them. And then I think that there is opportunity because to actually have the conversation with the customer you lost. Right.
Yeah, and if you think about like when sales agents really want information, what I want to know is, hey, CJ, when you've been talking to your customers, what have you been talking about? I don't have time to sit down with you for an hour or 2 hours, say all the customers you've been talking about. What have you been talking with them about? And is that relevant for me? And then I got to talk to the next sales agent and the next sales agent. What this system is doing is just saying, okay, we're just going to pull information. 80% of your other fellow sales reps are hearing about this competitor. Oh, I should probably be aware of that. And they're hearing about this competitor in terms of pricing. Oh, that's good to know. So that when the customer says, competitor X, they're offering like a 5% discount. Yeah, I know they are, but here, let's think about this. Is that really worth 5% extra value to you because of you got your story ready, as opposed to, oh, well, yeah, we could probably do that too. A 5%. Yeah. If let me go talk to my manager and I see if I can get that 5%. Right.
Right.
It's giving you more information so you're better aware. And instead of you having to sit down and talk to every other sales agent, it's sort of pulling that and giving you trends of where should you be ready when you go talk to that customer. And yeah, like you said, if you can go back to a customer you lost, now you've also got more information to go back and maybe target in, hey, I know you went to this competitor and now I know who to go talk to about what the competitor's been saying, et cetera.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great. I want to move into, hearing more about executive profiling, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. 'Cause that was something that I thought that was really interesting, the perspective that you bring.
Mhm.
And it landed with me because when I was moved in my past career working within legal tech at a provider, they often brought me in for a problem that they needed to solve that they knew I was skilled to solve based on my experience.
Yep.
So whether it was a sales issue, right, or go to market issue, they knew I had that skill set. And so you talk about, executive profiling and how certain executives, based on their experience, will likely approach, solving different problems. Can you elaborate on that and your perspective on it?
Yeah, I think the way you framed it is exactly right. Is that if you think about it from your own perspective and who you hire, you don't just get a set of resumes and sort of throw them in the air and whichever one lands closest to you, you hire. You're going to look at the experiences and you're going to match those experiences with what you want to accomplish. So when you hire someone or when you promote someone or when you add someone to your team, it's not just some random, oh, this person. Yeah, sometimes it might be, but in most cases, it's some random person that you're hiring, especially the more senior you get, is because I have a specific problem. Oh, you've solved this problem before, or you have a background to be able to solve it. I'm hiring you. So flip that around and say, okay, if my competitor hires someone on in another, and again, this can work for suppliers, this can work for, procurement. They just hired someone from a different industry. Why? Because that was their brother-in-law, because it was their sister, their aunt, because it was their cousin. Like, why did they hire this person? Just randomly? Or no, probably because they want that person's experience. That industry that they're bringing over from has a different way of operating, and they want that person's operating experience. That's number one. So if you just again, you hire people yourself because of experiences. So why would your competitor not hire someone because of their experiences? Okay. The second thing is now put yourself in the shoes of the person who just got hired. They were hired probably because during the interviews they were, talking about all this great experience they have that they could apply. Then they get hired and say, oh, whew, I fooled them. Now I get to do something totally different. Now I get to go develop like code and tech because it's not about Salesforce optimization or go to market strategy. I've always just wanted to code. So now that I got this job, I'm just going to get to code all day. No, you're going to do what you think you know best because A, that's why you were hired, but B, that's what gives you the best chance of succeeding. So from the first part of just hiring someone, you want to hire people based on the skills and what they bring to the job. And then when that person is hired, that person most often, not always, but almost always is going to want to do what they were hired to do and bring their skill sets because that maximizes the chance they're successful. So knowing that from both sides, it just makes sense to say, okay, well, I know that my competitor just hired a new sales head of sales, and it wasn't from the legal tech industry. It was from Google. Why? What is that? What was that person? Were they selling to, was it the B2B? Was it the on selling to advertisers? Was it like, where did they come from? Because they're going to look at the world from that lens. And the same thing when, a customer just hired someone as a new purchasing agent from another from another law firm, from somewhere else. Where? Why? What kind of buying patterns do those people, how do they think about buying things from suppliers? That affects how you should think about those interactions. So I'm a strong believer that I think, as I said in the book, if you grew up as a marketer, you don't get to be the CEO and then say, phew, finally I get to reoptimize the supply chain. You're going to market things. You're going to, how do we improve the brand? How do we expand our customer base? That's what you do. And that's what you're going to focus on. So I'm a strong believer that people exhibit patterns and behaviors and leverage the things they know. So if you know someone is new to anyone else in your environment, customer, supplier, distributor, whatever, look at what that person's background is, industry background, functional background, company background, etc. That's going to be a good clue of how they're going to behave.
Wow. That's that's rich. And it's a I think it stands the test of time. And I'll tell you this, most recently, just to, hammer home on the point that you're bringing up is that and we'll see how this plays out. But it was Microsoft who just changed CMOs, and they took the CMO from their cloud division and elevated that CMO to global CMO. What's that tell you potentially about what Microsoft is heading in the market, what they're planning to do in market? They're planning to do more cloud stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean that's a logical step.
Yeah, I just did a workshop with a consumer packaged goods company, and they had like the person who was in this one division became the new CEO of the entire organization. So that seems to indicate that across the different product lines, they're probably going to focus on that division. And then who they promoted within that division, there were four subcategories. And they promoted one person, which also sort of is an indicator of what does that person know, where they came from. And it's either just it could be just well, you have the most tenure, you're the next person up, etc. But more often, there's a reason why we promoted you. We want to emphasize that division. We want to emphasize, grow that, whatever it is, just like you said, so thinking about who is the person who got the new job, where'd they come from, and just put a little bit of why that might have happened. It gives you a lot of insight into where they're probably going to go.
That's right. That's right. Can we talk about immersive strategies that you've experienced as far as helping executives overcome? There's a term that you talk about, which is a lack of cognitive empathy. How does the immersive strategies help executives see or at least be able to understand the market better?
Yeah. One of the origins of why I decided to write the book was because for 20 years, I've heard clients say that their competitors were irrational. And at first I thought it was maybe like the behavioral economics terms of, our behavioral biases make us think in different ways than we're supposed to. And so they're irrational. But what I came to realize is it wasn't that sophisticated. It literally was, you're making the wrong decision. You're making a bad decision. You are not being rational in how you're thinking about things. And every time that a client would tell me that, I would ask questions like, well, what have you been doing? Well, we've been doing the same thing, but there's a reason why we do it. Oh, okay. Or, well, have they been, what are they trying, what's their objective as a firm? To grow. Well, have they been growing? Well, yeah. Well, then why is it irrational? Well, because we haven't been able to grow. Okay. So are they trying to help you or help themselves? Well, I don't like it. Like, okay, I don't care if you like it or not. The irrationality, I think, is a massive shortcut to say, if you're irrational, I cannot predict you. Therefore, I don't have to try to predict you. And it's not necessarily explicitly laid out that way, but it's just I've never heard a client say, they are irrational, and I stay up at nights trying to figure out the origins of their irrationality. It's always they're irrational, so I ain't bother. It's always an excuse of, I don't have to think about you. And that gets back to the whole thing of why should we pay attention to competitors in the first place? Because they affect you. So if you think about them as not being irrational, that means I have to understand why they do what they do. And this, I'll go back to sort of the basics of business strategy. Every time you're taught to be a strategist or be a business leader, you're taught to find something different, find something unique and unique asset or resource or capability or competency, go into a market that no one else is in, acquire technology that no one else has, et cetera. Every company is trying to do things differently. And if every company is trying to do things a little bit differently, then turn it around. That means when I look at everyone else, they should be making different choices than me because they are different. So we shouldn't be surprised when companies do things that are different, or our competitors do things which are different than we would. That's the whole point. We're not trying to look just like everyone else and copy everyone else. And cognitive empathy is not sympathy. I don't have to feel sorry for you or feel like I want you to be better. It just I don't like that choice. I wish you hadn't made that choice, but I understand why you made that choice. And honestly, if you had the chance to make that choice a dozen more times, you'd probably make the same choice every single time. So don't wish it away. Don't hope it away. Just say, I now know how you think about things. And therefore, I now know how you're probably going to think about things going forward.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, we can talk, forever on this subject. There's one more thing that I'll throw out there just to hear your perspective, because I think it's relevant, it's new, and it was most recent in it was an article in the Wall Street Journal that talked about Americans' preference for chicken, for fried chicken,
Okay.
and they said that KFC was dethroned by Popeye's chicken. And it blew me away because, you think of KFC and you're like, how could they not see this coming? Right. And apparently the article talks about the emergence of the chicken sandwich of all things. And when Popeyes, had, created this new chicken sandwich, this new offering for them, and how everybody was buzzing about it. And they said that kick-started innovation so that they were starting to introduce more unique offerings to the market, which slowly started grabbing share away from Kentucky KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, which ultimately led to them being dethroned.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about and everything we talked about today, in my eyes, is very relevant, because even regardless of the industry of the market, we see that competitive intelligence is at play, and either you are being chased, or you're the one that's trying to defend your kingdom, as well as grow into other areas. So I wanted to
I think let me just say one thing about that. What I would say is that doesn't mean Kentucky Fried Chicken made a mistake by not introducing a sandwich first, or it doesn't mean they made a mistake by not making spicy chicken like Popeyes did. If there's a longer, more classic example of like Coca-Cola and Red Bull, right? When Red Bull came out, highly caffeinated energy drink, and Coke was like, we're not touching that, because they had so much to risk with the Coca-Cola brand, and Red Bull could risk essentially nothing by developing it. Popeyes didn't have as much to risk as Kentucky Fried Chicken by putting out a really spicy chicken sandwich, because who knows if customers would want it, or say, oh, Kentucky Fried Chicken's got way too spicy, we don't want it anymore. Not even the buckets. Because so it's not the case that, oh, someone did something, I should copy them. It's, wait, why did they do what they did? And what does that mean they might do in the future? And is there something I could do to cut them off? So maybe instead of making a spicy chicken sandwich, just say, oh, it looks like you're going with the spicy, and I'm just going to make a regular chicken sandwich. And that's going to blunt them enough that I'm not going to lose the number one position, like you said. So it's not about saying I need to know what they're doing so I can do it first. It's about, I need to know what they're doing so I can use my own unique resources and capabilities and assets and positions, etc., to do something to make sure I don't end up or minimize the chance I end up number 2 down the road.
Wow. I love it. So where can people find you, follow you? And of course, I have it right here from my notes. Buy the book.
Thanks. Yeah. So the book is available, pretty much anywhere you buy books. So you can do that online, or go to your local bookstore and ask them to get it for you. You can see over my shoulder, Gateway Competitive Insights is my consulting business on the side. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me there, or you can search for me on LinkedIn, connect to me that way too. Anyway, any of the options would be good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John. This was fantastic. I really appreciate you taking time today and providing some insight into competitive intelligence. And I'm looking forward to in the future having you back on where we can talk more about competitive intelligence as well.
Absolutely, CJ. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, anytime, happy to talk more.
Awesome.